Hi, everybody. My name is Heather Kimball. I'm here with Deputy Director Steve Pawsey from the Department of Public Works. Yesterday, February 24th, we had a community meeting with residents and stakeholders in the Waipio Valley area to go over the geotechnical study that was finalized in January for Waipio Valley Road. And so what you'll see right now, unfortunately, I forgot to record Deputy Director Pawsey's slide presentation that went over the results of the geotechnical report. So I'm going to have Steve go over that again with us now, and then I will combine that video with the Q&A session that happened after the presentation. So thank you again, Deputy Director, for making time to be available to go over, redo the slideshow, and I'll pass it on to you. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Heather, and hopefully I'll improve on my presentation from last night. Although the pressure is on. So I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully, if all works out, you can see I've got about 5 slides to go over. Is that working?
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
Great. So DPW initiated a geotechnical evaluation of the Waipio Valley Road. It was initiated back in 2020 with work finishing up in 2021. The results of what I'll show you today are from the final report that was issued in January of 2022. It's called the Preliminary Geotechnical Evaluation, and it was done, engineering evaluation, I'm sorry, and it was done by a company called Hart Krauser, which is based in Honolulu, although they're part of a larger national firm called Haley and Aldrich, which is well renowned for their work in the geotechnical area. So the purpose of the study was to address the roadway safety due to rockfall and slope instability hazards, occurrences that were documented recently in 2018 and 2019, and as well as just recurring challenges of that whole area that have been going on for some time. So we'll take you through the slides. And again, what I'd like to be able to do today is share with you the results of the study. So the first bullet here mentions that mitigation or some sorts of repairs or fixes, if you will, to the rock falls recommended on the upslope side of the road. And this will lower the risk to vehicles and pedestrians. There's a danger of slippages of large quantities of soil and or rocks falling from the upper sides of the slope. And that's an area that's been identified by the engineers as something that needs to be addressed. The next item, slope instability, which is due to steepness. The grades of some of the lower side slopes are 35 to 50%, and obviously on the upper side, it's vertical. But exposure to water and rain and wind and erosion of soil and the location of having top-heavy vegetation. That vegetation, large trees, the weight of that vegetation and the root system could actually force the entirety of the soil to slip or to fall. So the idea here is that those conditions exist. They'll be exacerbated by rainfall events, as has been observed in the past. Another thing that could contribute to a slip or fall of the soils and the rocks would be seismic activity, which, as you know, is also ever present here on our island. The next bullet mentions that the conditions similar to the March 2019 slide, that was a slip of the slope on the downside of the roadway. Those conditions exist along most of the downhill slopes. And the conclusion from the engineers is that there's a likely chance that downhill slope areas along the road could fail without intervention. Intervention references mitigation measures. What can we do to fix the current conditions and avoid a future slip or failure of that slope? One of the other things that comes into that is when you look at the road, and you're all familiar with that, proper drainage is essential. Getting the water off the road getting it into lined channels so that we don't run the risk of eroding the soils during heavy rainfall events. The next bullet talks about, at a minimum, the upslope stability needs to be addressed. There's an especially high risk to pedestrians and vehicles. Rock falls or slippage of large quantities of soil off those upper slopes is an ever-present possibility, and it's been identified here by the consultants. Lastly, their results indicate that there is an estimated risk of injury or loss of life, especially for people walking, that would exceed the established thresholds for acceptable risk. In this world, we talk about tolerable risk and we talk about acceptable risk. Tolerable risk is something that's usually by society given a risk ranking of 1 in 10,000, one occurrence in 10,000 events, versus acceptable, which is 1 in 100,000. What the report concludes is that, especially in the area of pedestrian safety, that risk, while tolerable, mitigation measures need to be implemented in order to make the risk, future risk, acceptable. I'm going to switch to our next slide. So based on the results of the report, the consulting engineers propose some immediate actions. The first of which is to limit risk to pedestrians by limiting pedestrian traffic. This would be the best way to reduce the possibility of injury or loss of life due to falling debris off the sides of the slopes. The second would be limiting roadway usage to local vehicle traffic only. This would reduce the risk, and it would also limit the wear and tear on the road and possibly prolong the road usability. It's a simple concept that if you lower the number of occurrences or potential exposures to that risk, you will be then lowering the risk. Fewer people driving up and down the road will also have the added effect of hopefully adding a little bit more time to that road wearing out and the weight of vehicles traveling on that road, which could contribute to the slopes. The last is closing the traffic to all traffic at certain times when heavy rainfall events occur. This would reduce the possibility of injury or loss of life due to upper or lower slopes, slope failure. This is something that was again observed in 2018 and 2019 during significant rainfall events is when there were problems. And we have some information when we make the recommendation to the mayor on rainfall events, storm events, when they're being predicted or when they're going to occur. Either like hard, high intensity, low timing, like a 1 hour. If it's going to rain 1.5 inches in an hour, that's considered a big event. Or if it's going to rain over 9 inches in a 24-hour period, that would be another big rain event. And those are recommendations that will come from our consulting engineer. Our next steps is with certainty, we can look at bullet number 1, where we need to develop a mitigation plan. We need to come up with a way to address the immediate issues as well as come up with a long-term plan. The consulting engineer will be back on site collecting additional data, evaluating the various reaches of the road in the slopes and the assigned hazards and really help us understand what are the areas that we need to focus on first. They'll do a prioritization, and they'll also discuss with us some of the preferred mitigation measures. There are a number of measures out there to consider. People are familiar likely with putting in cages or removing top slopes and stabilizing with netting. Other methods include stabilizing slopes by putting concrete or materials on it heavier to prevent the slides, retaining walls, and then obviously pavement reconstruction will be another thing that they'll look at because, as I mentioned earlier, rainfall will tend to make things worse, and by being able to get rain off the roads, that'll be a big help. After they do this work, and I'm estimating the time frame for that will be sometime in the next 4 to 6 months, we'll come up with a plan. We'll have some ideas on what we want to do. We'll develop some cost estimates, and we'll be in a place where we can sit down and do design plans, focus on the areas that we want to do first, prepare drawings and specifications, and get a contractor on board to help us start making the proper corrective measures to fix the problems that we see out there. And then lastly, another component of this is always going to be environmental permitting. We'll have to likely do an environmental assessment, as well as archaeological and cultural impact inventories and analyses. These are required by state law. If federal funding becomes available for this project, we'll have to take a few more steps where we'll have to interface with Fish and Wildlife Service and a couple of other organizations. The report that I mentioned is a nice quick read of 145 pages. We've made it available on the DPW website. This is the link to it. The other part of that, though, is if you just go to the DPW website and you click on the button that says About Public Works, you'll be able to find a copy of this report, as well as other public notices on road closures and areas like that. Lastly, it's important that we engage the community when we go forward with our studies, with our engineering, with the conclusions that we come up with, and certainly with the direction that we're taking with respect to what the ultimate solutions will be for mitigation measures, corrective measures. So it's our commitment, and this is really critical, to keep you all engaged, to make sure that transparently you know what we're doing, to be available if you have specific questions. We need to continue to communicate if we're going to be doing temporary closures during the course of investigation. Certainly down the road, as we develop an action plan, a detailed schedule to share with the community, there may be road closures during the construction activity themselves. So our commitment here is really, we need to all be on board. We all need to communicate with each other. That starts with Councilwoman Kimball as a really, really good point source. I've provided my name and information here as well. And Charisse is our public information officer. Her number is here. We're all also available through websites. If you go to the county, you can find us, as well as our email addresses. And I think that we're going to make sure that we get that information in your hands as well. So we're beginning a journey, and the results are what they are. And I've made the statement that they probably come as no surprise. You folks travel up and down the road. You've seen it. Now it's real. In abundance of caution, we're making recommendations that we are, which will then feed into the mayor's proclamation. But it's all technical. It's all technical studies, and it really comes down to looking at the results and what the information is telling us, and protecting the safety of the community. And we also recognize we have an obligation to provide good remedies for this as well. So with that, that summarizes, and hopefully as you paste this onto the last night's tape, the rest of my questions that I answered will come into play. So.
Yes, great. Thank you, Deputy Director, and really do appreciate you going through the slides one more time, just so we could make sure that was made available to the public. And as you said, this is all about protecting public health and safety, and it certainly wasn't an easy decision for anyone, but it's the right decision based on the data that's been presented in the geotechnical report. So for folks watching, we are going to now transition to the Q&A session that followed Director Pawsey's presentation. Just so you folks know, in addition to Deputy Director Pawsey, we had Director Ikaika Rodenhurst from the Department of Public Works, Finance Director Deanna Sacco, Parks and Rec Director Maurice Messina, Civil Defense Administrator Thomas Magno, and also our Mayor Mitch Roth in attendance for the Q&A session. So with that, we'll stop here and merge this with the other video. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Got it. Okay, so there are a lot of questions, and we're still trying to make sure that we have all of the answers as well. And that's a big part of this meeting, is we really want to hear from the community. I can tell you, local traffic, what we're looking at is residents and people who have agricultural businesses down below is what we, that was our first stab at this. So we wanted to make sure that we're hearing from everybody. We do know the more vehicles that go down, the more dangerous it is. And so we want to limit traffic as much as possible. And that traffic is probably going to be limited all the way through construction. However, I have to put a caveat on that because we haven't got the plan back. And when we're discussing this, the first thing is, well, why don't we just put nets up there? And the answer to that is nets may make it more dangerous than not having nets. And the consultants may come back and the engineers may come back and say, yeah, it's okay to have nets. So we're looking at things. We don't have all of the answers yet. And so we thought it was really important to make sure that the community is part of this discussion, rather than we're telling you what you have to do. We want to hear from you. And so enforcement is something that we are looking at. We know that immediately, probably within the next day or so, you'll see signs closing the roads to local traffic only, no pedestrian traffic, because those are things that can minimize the risk of people getting injured. So that's some of the things we're looking at. I know Steve has a lot more of the other answers, but I wanted to make it clear that we're trying to get your feedback as we go through this. We're not bringing you in at the end, we're bringing you in the beginning. So Steve, you want to follow up with that?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. If you want to do any civil engineering, let me know. You're more than welcome. So a couple quick things. The signs. I talked to our traffic division today, and they're doing everything they can to get signs out there tomorrow. Probably they're shooting for midday to late day, but the signs will be will identify, as Mayor said, closed, local traffic only, and no pedestrians. And I think they're also going to modify that message and the arrow that's up top that just directs people over to the lookout and away from the road. So that's one thing. As far as how long it's going to be, I can tell you this, that the next 4 to 6 months will be the critical time period as the engineers get out there in earnest and help take a further look at what the situation is and come up with the mitigation strategy, and with that also prioritization. It's a disciplined step-by-step process. As Heather or Mayor mentioned, yeah, nets would be great, but it may not be the best thing to do. There's a number of options when you look at mitigation, anything from cutting the top slopes off or stabilizing the slopes or putting up protection on those upper ends to putting retaining walls or things to prevent downslope failure, as well as just looking at drainage and getting some of the water redirected off the road and rebuilding the pavement. There's a number of options. So I would tell you, I can tell you, I know what the next 4 to 6 months will be, and that will be an intensive effort to look at and better identify what options are most applicable, what areas need attention first and foremost, and coming up with a sequential plan that allows us to go in and resolve all of the issues once and for all. I will tell you during the course of construction, and that's a little ways off, and we will articulate what that plan is after we've developed it. But during the course of construction, you can expect from time to time there'll need to be road closures. But again, that's where we are committed to work with you, the community. There will be plenty of warning. There will be plenty of discussions and communications once those construction plans are formulated and they at all would impact the ability to go up or down the road. But as I said, I think we've got a good plan forward. We just need a little bit of time to really crystallize what it's going to look like and what the timing and the schedule will look like.
Thank you, Steve. We've got several questions in the chat and I will get to those, but we've had Jim Kane with his hand up here for a little bit. We'll go to Jim first and then I'll address some of these issues in the chat. Jim, go ahead.
Well, aloha, kako, and I just want to thank first Mayor and his team and of course Heather for hosting this meeting and for everybody to come and share their mana'o. You know, everybody knows the Waipio Road is a dangerous situation. That's just, everybody knows that. And so no surprise to anybody. In some ways, this might be good timing, you know, because we're about to embark on a facilitated process with an effort that Heather's been spearheading to come up with a better management plan for how people access the valley and what they do in the valley, and try to come up with a better way to receive people as they come. And so I guess a suggestion would be to really try to mesh these two together, because a lot of times when you get a design and a plan that comes from outside, and it might be good and on the engineering side, but we have to mesh that with the real life on the ground, everyday life in Waipio. And so I'd really suggest that we can make sure we have this community input that is forthcoming be a part of this final design plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, for that comment.
Thanks, Jim. No, I just really appreciate that. And, you know, we're trying to do that as much as possible. Like I said, we're in the beginning of this process, and, you know, we expect, and I saw Heather actually gave an answer to the question, will we be having more of these? We will definitely be having more of these as we go through. And you're right, this may be, you know, a blessing in disguise. This is, like I started off saying, this is not where we wanted to go. We didn't want to have a dangerous situation, but it is a dangerous situation. So I see one of the questions, what about tours and stuff like that? You know, I think we need to do everything we can to minimize the risk. There are people that have businesses down there. There are people that have homes down there. Our initial look at this, just in our small group, was property owners or leaseholders with verified agricultural activity limited to crop cultivation or animal husbandry, including essential farm workers, no visitors. And that may be a little bit harsh, but I think the last thing in the world that we want is anybody getting killed. And, you know, the county has liability, and, you know, the tour industry who people bring them down have liability. I don't think anybody who has a tour business even down there would like to have that liability hanging over their head. I mean, I could really do a number on their families and stuff as well. This is not something we want to do, it's something that we have to do. And I can't make that clear enough.
Thank you, Mayor Ikaika.
Yeah, Ikaika Road Nurse, the Director of Public Works. I also wanted to add into that, as Mayor's bringing up the safety, and I see the questions about groups down there and children and whatnot. I think there's two items to really touch on here. One is personal safety, and the other one is community safety. First, personal safety. For pedestrians or people on horseback or uncovered vehicles going down there, the hazard is clear, and the rocks are indiscriminate. They won't stop because you're a landowner or a resident or a child or someone out there for to holo go surf or whatnot. There's a danger for the rockfall hazard. So for personal safety reasoning, that's why we have implemented and we want to implement that recommendation to have restriction on pedestrian travel down there. And the second part is community safety. We'd hate for someone going down there for another reason and cause, other than what's the necessary reasons to be there, and cause a slope off of the road and prevent access for the rest of the community. As Steve mentioned, there's a lot of hazards there for road failure and whatnot, and we don't want to provide any extraneous activity down there that might be the cause of some really severe damage to the road and cut off the community. We don't want to have the community cut off at this time, and so we want to take every caution we can to prolong this road while we get the implementation plan together with the engineers to get this addressed. So we're doing this out of abundance and caution to not just personal safety, but the safety of the community as well. So that's all I had to say about that.
Yeah, thank you, Director, and very, very important points there. I want to go back to the enforcement question. We've had a couple more of those because I think that is a big question with our education specialists only being up there during certain periods, and the question was raised, what happens during the other periods of the day? And maybe along those same lines, can we also give a timeline for some of these immediate actions, like when we might expect you said next couple of days even for signs, and when we might get these rules and things like that? Can you share a more immediate timeline for these things and talk a little bit more about enforcement?
Sure. We have already started to make signs, and I believe that the minimal signs will be closed to local traffic, I think, because we already have those signs, and no pedestrian traffic. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mayor.
And I think there's one that says hazardous road or something like that, or
We're looking into that one for the MUTCD as we discussed. So there may be additional signage that we get out there.
yeah. So I think tomorrow we'll start getting signs that we do have out there, and then, as like I said, we are looking at language right now. I'm hoping to either have my my proclamation out tomorrow, or during this weekend. I wanted to hear from the community before I finished putting those things down. We have some ideas of what we want to put out, so I'm hoping to get that done tomorrow, based on the outcome of this meeting. I just want to throw one other thing out there. If there was an alternative route in there, we would have closed this road completely. And so I know there's a lot of questions about, people going down and can we get these people and get, those people. We would have closed it if there was an alternative route. And so as far as the enforcement, we hear the concerns. We're looking at, do we have off-duty officers? Do we need off-duty officers? We're talking, we're going to be talking with our rangers up top. We don't expect them to make arrests. There's signs up there. We expect them hopefully to warn people. People who go down and violate the orders, they can be arrested. And it'll probably be, people coming up or things like that, because there's signs that say no trespassing and closed roads. So we're looking at those kinds of things. We still don't have the full answer on that, but I'd rather be honest with you with what we have and what we're looking at this time.
Great, thank you, Mayor Ralph. a question. First of all, I want to just highlight a suggestion by Lani Kila. Can we also get some signs in Honoka'a town, warning people before they even head out there to the lookout? Because the point was made that we are going to have a lot of traffic there at the lookout, with people being stopped to check their residency and whatnot. So just putting that recommendation out there to our Department of Public Works. What about access for the hiking trail, Levi Trail, and the camping? Any thoughts or discussions on that?
So let me first go to Lana Kila's recommendation. I think that's an excellent recommendation. Ikaika or Steve, can you please make that happen if possible? Great
Yes.
recommendation. I mean, that's
Yes.
why we meet with the community. We know that you guys know this area better than we do, and are there to make recommendations. We have contacted DLNR. Steve, you want to go over that about the camping? And
Yeah, actually, if you don't mind, I'll defer that one to Sharice, because I know she contacted the gentleman today. Sharice, I hope I'm not putting you on the spot.
Hi, actually Jackson Bauer is on this call as well. I did talk to him and he is ready to join us, do a joint effort to stop permitting. We just have to give him more information and give him a heads up. Jackson, you have any comments? Oh, I have to unmute him, sorry.
And I'm looking for him on the list here. And
Oh, right there, I got you, okay.
Hi, yes, sorry, I'm can't talk long. I apologize, balancing family life at this time. Let's see. I'll answer in the chat comments. Sorry, now's not a good time.
Okay, no problem.
Thanks, Jackson. And I don't know, we also, I believe, have Deputy Director DLNR, Bob Masuda. I don't know, Bob, if you want to comment at all.
Our department is supportive of the public safety concerns for by the county, and want to be as supportive as we can. We do have a concern for how people might access our Na'alahele trail systems from Waipio to Waimanu. Jackson was going to address that, but Bill Starmont, who is from Hilo, from Big Island, and everybody knows Bill, is also on this call. So in regards to, and Bill is our interim administrator for statewide Na'alahele. So Bill, you want to answer any questions they have on Na'alahele trail systems? It's yours for the taking.
Was that, I'm sorry, Bill?
Thanks,
Bill
Heather.
Stormont? Bill Stormont. Okay, there we go. Bill, did you have anything to add?
Aloha, thanks for the opportunity. No, at this point, no, this is fairly fresh information for all of us. As Bob said, we stand in support of the county's efforts to make sure that access is done safely. But as he also said, we do have, I'll reiterate, we have concerns about access to other public resources that's only available through the Waipio Road going down there and into Muliwai. So we know that we have permits that are out there that have already been written and issued. We'll have to put in place mechanisms to ensure that if the road is going to be closed and there is no further access, that we're going to have to shut that down somehow. But we stand willing and ready to work with the county on that. It's a tough situation, no question, all around.
In all cases, the state and the county are partners in public safety and support for the continuing economic stability of the island and the valley. And so we stand ready to support the leadership of the county on this county issue. And that's why we're all here, Bill, myself, Jackson. We are concerned about state facilities and functions, but we stand behind the public safety concerns of the mayor and the county. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bob and Bill, and appreciate the support, and of course, we'll continue to work with you folks. I know Councilmember Richards wants to chime in here because of that, probably that trail conversation, but other comments. Councilmember Richards, floor is
Yeah,
yours.
thank you. And I appreciate that, Councilman Kimball. And Mayor, I do appreciate you acting quickly, and shout out to Public Works for getting this done. Raising a concern, I appreciate Deputy Matsuda's on the call as well. And Heather, you and I have talked about this back and forth. We have the valleys in our districts. And with the shutting down of Waipio, we're going to see an influx, I believe, to the Pololu side. And we're going to have to manage that as well. And so I just want to put on the table right now, you know, I've discussed this with people in Waipio. Jim and I have had this conversation. So I agree, public safety is very important, but we're going to have an unintended consequence, I believe, by having it shift. So I want to put it on the table now. The Nahelia project is working, I think, pretty well on the Pololu side, but we need to take it further. So I just want to put that on the table right now. Thanks, Heather.
Thanks, Tim. And yeah, I think that is a concern, and it's been brought up not in this forum, but with other folks that are near the valley about potential trespass in other areas along the rim, on the Waipio side. So just a shout out to the administration to just be attentive to that potential along Mud Lane as an example, and then of course the Pololu side. We have another recommendation.
Heather.
Yes. Go ahead, Bob.
I think it would be very appropriate for us to acknowledge the support of the Hawaii HTA, the Hawaii Tourism Authority, in supporting our Na'alahele program on the Pololu side. Bill and Jackson have reported a very successful approach with residents working with us and part-time job as informational rangers, like in helping visitors and locals alike more safely access trails and to visit in a aloha spirit method rather than just pounding our stuff. So I want to acknowledge HTA and their support. Bill is working very hard to continue that particular effort, just for your information. It seems like when the county is all power with the actual road facility thing, that we might want Bill to engage with Maurice and others and the mayor's administration to see whether we can get HTA support for something also on the Waipio side. Just a thought.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. And go ahead, Mayor.
Yeah, I just want to shout out to Lanakila and to Ross First, the Hawaii Island Visitor Bureau. Lanakila made a great recommendation for to notify our rental car industries, and Ross Birch in Hawaii Island Visitor Bureau, they have agreed to take that on already. So great having these meetings where people make great recommendations and people take responsibility. So thank you, both of you. Great ideas and great teamwork.
It's a great leadership, Mayor. Thanks to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ross, from Island of Hawaii Visitors Bureau, for the comment in response to Lanikila's message, and you know, you have been supporting us with our facilitated planning as well, so that's very much appreciated, and I know you're doing your best to get the message out there to the folks in the visitor industry about what's happening with this. I know this is sort of asked and answered, but I think it cannot be said enough. And so maybe I'll direct this to you, Director Rodenhurst, but you know, in terms of community access to the ocean, surfers, school groups, you know, we're basically going to have to close it down to these types of activities during this time period. Is that correct?
That's correct, and it's not an easy decision. I understand this does have an impact on people's lives and the fulfillment and enjoyment of that life, but we are doing this out of abundance of caution for their lives and the livelihoods of the community down there, so we don't incur any additional trips down there that may erode away at the road. And again, for personal safety, to make sure that no one gets hurt along that road as a pedestrian. It's not an easy decision, and we understand that we are severely impacting your lives. And this is an important and sacred place to some folks. So we do acknowledge that. And we do this out of an abundance of caution for one of the most sacred things is your life.
Heather, if I can, thanks, Akaika. We have some sample language, and I think just so people know, our corporation council went out and they looked at other places where they had to do this. And so I think some of this language actually came from what was used in Kauai when they had the flooding, where they closed off roads. And so I'm just going to read what we have so people kind of know what we're using as the kind of the template. So I think this is the Kauai language, except we changed our things. Pursuant to HRS, and I think it's going to be 264 1.5, there will be a prohibition of the operation of tourism activities and transient vacation rentals in Waipio Valley, which require access via Waipio Valley Road, as well as prohibitions and restrictions of access to Waipio Valley via Waipio Valley Road, subject to the following limitations. And these are the limitations that I think we stole from Kauai's things. No pedestrian access, and we did add some of our own based on this. Residents, no visitors by way of four WD vehicles, so four-wheel drive vehicles. Property owners or leaseholders with verified agricultural activity limited to crop cultivation or animal husbandry, including essential farm workers, no visitors. County, state, federal governmental employees and verified governmental contractors. 5, employees and volunteers for the following types of NGOs: utility providers, recognized humanitarian disaster response and recovery entities, insurance industry, serving verified residents, property owners, residential or infrastructure construction repair contractors, serving verified residential property owners, area businesses and nonprofits engaged by county, state, federal government in response recovery operations, and other NGO entities as approved or requested by the County of Hawaii, State of Hawaii, or the federal government. Vehicles with a GVWR of blank tons, we got to still figure out the tonnage and the pounds, and under, with DOT authorized exemptions for appropriate emergency response vehicles. 7, no access during significant and prolonged rain events. And then, you know, there's other fill in the blanks that we still need to figure out. The term effective blank through blank subject to modification. So I want to be as transparent as possible. These are what we are looking at. We wanted to give the community a chance to hear and, you know, make recommendations. This group has made some great recommendations tonight, and we really appreciate that. But I just want to throw that out there so everybody knows what's going on, and it's not like we're trying to hide anything. You know, we're starting at the very beginning, and you're hearing other agencies are just being brought in. Everybody's here on the ground floor together, and you know, I believe that we really need to work together to come through this. Again, it's not something that we wanted to do, it's something that we have to do.
Thank you, Mayor Roth, and I'll just reiterate, you know, this may seem a little bit unorganized and not everything set in stone, and there's a reason for that. Is as soon as the report was finalized, it was like, okay, we got to go to the public with this and just share what we have and get that feedback. And so, you know, thank you for being understanding that this is early in the process. There may be some fits and starts. We're still working things out, and we appreciate your patience and flexibility and participation as we do that. I do want to ask the question that was provided in the chat, which is, have you thought about how we're going to verify the allowed vehicles. So who's a resident, who's a taro farmer, who's, you know, doing animal husbandry down there. Have we come up with a mechanism for that at this point?
You know, I think a lot of the people in the community know who these people are. We are hoping to work with the community and come up with answers to questions just like that. I see Maurice Messina, our Parks Director, has his hands up because I think he's also been looking at this as well today.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So our plan is to kind of do it like we did when we had to shut down during COVID, you know, for COVID safety and for you know, gathering sizes, where we had Rocky and Darren out there. So Rocky and Darren now are they're park employees. They're no longer on contract with us. I spoke to both of them today, and since they both have the knowledge of everyone more or less who is a resident or who has property down in the valley, they're the ones that's going to be given, you know, letting the people know, and they know who needs to be down there. We're also going to be taking part of the mayor's emergency proclamation and making half-sheet flyers for the folks who come down there and they want to know the information, why they aren't allowed to be down there. That way that they have information to give. And hopefully that'll also diffuse some of the situations. And we're still trying to come up with what are we going to do on the hours that Rocky and Darren aren't at work. So before 7:45 and after 4:30. So we're working on those plans now. I'll be meeting with the Rangers down there tomorrow as well to have a face-to-face meeting and kind of figure out, and just like what the mayor and Heather are doing with you folks, get their ideas on how we can shorten this up and get better at it as well.
Thank you, Maurice. And yeah, just to reiterate, a lot of this is still a work in progress. We recognize that this enforcement piece is significant. There was another question about that. Just, you know, it may be a bit of a mess at the top. Will we work this stuff out? It's just that we're all acting in this sense of urgency in response to an emergency situation. Again, another question about the no pedestrian rule applying to residents, because that has come up in our conversations, and it's in the chat. I think the agreement is that the risk is so high with for pedestrians that is going to be just a flat prohibition for pedestrians of all types, regardless of where you are. And so that's another question. Am I correct on that? Is that where we're looking at right now?
Yeah, that's our recommendation, to have no pedestrians down there, regardless of, down the road, regardless of residents or need to be there. As far as what can be done with the community to address that, with providing travel down there, I'm not sure what that is. That's beyond what I have in front of me. What I have in front of me is that the dangers that are posed for pedestrian traffic down there. So our recommendation is no pedestrian traffic, regardless, resident, farmer, or someone down there for surf. That's where we're at.
So I think that is an opportunity for suggestions from the community in terms of how we assist those residents that do walk down to the valley or out, because that might be something that we need to address if that's the way that this ultimately goes. Yeah, there continues to be concerned that's unfeasible for some people to not have that option. So we're going to have to come up with an alternative. So looking for suggestions for that. Bob, did you have a comment?
Yeah, this is a personal comment. This is not the first deputy of the State Department of Park, Land and Natural Resources speaking. My personal comment, I have personally had experience several times where on my way either down or up, I've had a visitor in a vehicle freeze in the middle of the road, just freeze, because of the scariness of the slope where the vehicle was, So I've had to kind of edge my car off to the side and get out and help kind of talk the person down calmly so that we could safely get the vehicle up the road. And so, you know, I'm not talking out of school. When I was 100 pounds lighter, Mayor will remember those days. I used to backpack young people from Waipio to Waimanu as part of our programs and things. So, you know, this is from personal knowledge. It's a public safety hazard of significant proportion in terms of roads in the state. I just wanted to share that we're not talking out of some blue sky book kind of thing. These are personal experiences, and I'm sure Jim and others who are residents there come across these kinds of, you know, situations regularly. People don't know how dangerous it is till they're halfway down, and then it's a oh my God.
Yeah, thank
I
you,
just
Bob.
wanted to share that. Thank you for allowing me.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. And I know that a lot of folks here on the call tonight have had similar personal experiences, and I'm going to share in the chat now a comment from somebody that would like to remain anonymous, but basically she said, you know, this should have been done a long time ago. As a concerned leaseholder and parent, there's been a lot of close calls that she's experienced, and you know, proper confirmation and verification of everyone entering the valley and the business people such as that will be doing work in the valley, limiting trips. You know, this is a small sacrifice right now for a long-term solution, and that's true. I mean, we here are part of this is also preserving the road, as Steve mentioned, so that the folks that absolutely need to have access because this is where their home is, this is where their field is, still continue to have the access. That's how serious this situation is, and it will be a sacrifice for some, but it's one that needs to happen so that we protect life and safety, and that we protect that access for people that live and work down there. So thank you for that comment. I know that we've had some more comments about the need for public education. Again, Ross Birch has mentioned that, you know, they're going to be doing a lot of work to make sure that there's direct messaging to the visitor industry folks that the valley is closed to visitors, and making sure that there are alerts on mapping apps and things like that.
So Heather, let me just say from the administration, Cyrus Johnson, I believe he's on as well. He's going to be putting out messages, and Charisse also going to be putting out messages. So we're looking at doing that. And, you know, this is a first step in public education is working together with this group to help us, you know, get that message out as well. So, you know, great recommendations. And I saw this Bill Cook to everyone, iPhone Bill Cook, tour van shuttle for residents. You know, it may be good if the residents can get together and, you know, come up with some solutions for their friends and neighbors in the valley as well. So you know, this is, I think, all of us working together to come up with ideas. I can tell you, as government, we don't have all the answers, but having this group with, I think there was like 75 people. It's great to see 78 people right now, all the different ideas. And it's really is a community effort. And I just want to, you know, I'm just so impressed with this group, and just want to thank all of you for, you know, the ideas that are coming out, and just being here tonight. It's pretty impressive.
Yes, thank you everybody for being here tonight. We really appreciate it, and I think that's a great segue into what I was going to say next, which is Director Rodenhurst or Deputy Director Pawsey. What are ways, as you know, there may be people who are a little bit shy to come on tonight, and how can they get in touch with you if they've got ideas? Maybe just repeat that information so everybody's clear on this is a work in progress and they can still contribute.
So I would suggest, and maybe Sharice, you could do this just, and it's available on the DPW website, email addresses for myself and Director Rodenhurst and Sharice as well. You could maybe post those right now, but that's a simple way to just communicate. Let us know what your thoughts, what your input is, and we'll make sure that we keep you in the loop. And again, as we go through this, just to reiterate what Director Rodenhurst said, we recognize this is an inconvenience, but it's really completely being done in the name of safety. And I love to talk about risk. I won't bore you, but the short of it here is you reduce risk of something bad happening by reducing the number of trips. And that's people walking, and that's vehicles. And the bottom line is the roadway will be safer by having less access to it. And it is an inconvenience. And as I said earlier, you have our commitment. We're going to be working as fast as we can and diligently, and engaging everyone here on our plans to address this. It's not going to turn into a one of those projects that I'm sure you've read about that last for a long time. We will be working as fast as we can. Finance Director Sacco is on the phone. She's been quiet, but she and I have had a number of conversations to make sure that as we come up with solutions, that we find the finances to take care of these issues. So, right, Deanna?
Yep, that's correct.
Thank you.
And, you know, going back to the communication, my understanding is Councilwoman Kimball has these meetings regularly. You know, at her invitation, we intend on being at, you know, meetings to give, you know, where we're at in the process, but more than just give that information, to answer questions. So we are committed to making this road safe, not just, you know, for a couple of years, but for the long term.
So a bunch of emails just came through, email addresses in the chat. So please make sure to grab those so that you can continue to reach out and provide feedback to this group. We did have one question that came in privately that I'm not sure if we know the answers to. How soon will tours be stopped? Do we have an idea on that yet?
I think once we do our proclamation, which may come out as soon as tomorrow, we'll do that. I need to talk to Corp Council if there's going to be a start date. Usually when we have proclamations, there are, but right now, because of the situation, you know, it's a dangerous road, and for a tour company to be bringing people down there, you're taking risks.
The people, commercial operators are still free to bring people to the lookout. The lookout is probably one of the most beautiful lookouts in the state, and that in itself is an opportunity. So, you know, this is not an anti-commercial thing, but at the same time, we need to respect that not only is this a public safety concern, and sometimes we have to help protect people from themselves. And it is a public safety issue, but it's also a cultural issue for Waipio Valley. As Ikaika said earlier, Waipio has a long and legacy culturally. And so during this period of repair for the physical safety, we have an opportunity to also help flush out a greater educational kind of cultural outreach. So there's a mutual respect in the use of our natural and cultural resources. And with mutual respect comes a better relationship between commercial and non-commercial, which means visitor industry and natural cultural resources. And we need to make sure that nexus is a pleasant and mutually beneficial one, not us against them, but a win-win thing. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Bob. And that goes back to the original point by Mr. Kane, which was that, at the same time, all of this is going on with the road from a technical mechanical standpoint, there's this concurrent project to develop a destination management plan or community-based plan for the access, managing access to the valley. And so, timing wise, that is really important, I think, in that part of the conversation. One of our Mr. Monakea mentioned that we should acknowledge former council member Val Poindexter. She has been involved in this discussion for a long time and did a lot of work on this issue prior to completing her 4th term. So yeah, a happy, we should acknowledge all the work that Val did in the past, especially bringing people together for a conversation. So Val, if you ever watch this, mahalo for all of your efforts. We have a comment here from Kaiwi asking, can we just talk a little bit about Waipio, what Waipio means? And maybe Kaiwi, you wanna start off that conversation. You on here?
Yeah, sorry everybody. I'm sorry, I'm late.
I'm gonna find you here.
Waipio, I mean, to me, the very name of it warrants a certain pause. It warrants us to consider deeply what we are doing, and I'm appreciative of all the things that are being said. But in my opinion, and Jesse is hopefully on this call right now, but sometimes Aina needs breathing room. It just needs time, just like us human beings. We just need a break. And I think Waipio has been, under a lot of wants and desires and aspirations of people that want things of Waipio, but my only question is, if we understood, that name of Waipio, then what are we as leaders committed to do to give Waipio space and time to breathe?
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Kaiwi,
you.
for bringing that concept and that energy to the conversation. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. It may not be what we intended or what we expected, but sometimes things have a way of happening the way they're meant to, which is, a pause is needed. A pause is needed for recovery for the community. Pause is needed for recovery of the Aina, and now that's happening. So thank you for sharing those thoughts. And somebody else in the chat mentioned that it's finally a chance for the valley to recover, and I think that is a true sentiment. Anybody else want to chime in on that idea or on that part of the conversation? We have a comment just about the traffic and the parking infrastructure up at the lookout, and I don't know if we still have Director Messina on. Director Messina, are you still on here? Is there anything you can say? Oh, there you are. Yes.
What's the question?
The question is about the parking issue at the lookout and any ideas or plans to deal with that, since this will likely have an impact on that when we do already have a problem with parking on private property and whatnot in the area.
Yeah, this is one of the things that the mayor brought up today in an earlier meeting that we've got to address as well. We only have a very limited number of spots at the lookout. The reality is that the parking is for the lookout for those folks visiting that Parks and Rec facility. When I go down and talk with our rangers tomorrow, and we speak with the mayor tomorrow as well, along with DPW, trying to figure out a way to manage this better. There were some ideas put around today about, should we limit the amount of time folks can stay at the parking, because really all they can do is visit the lookout. Should we limit that to 30 minutes each? But our rangers really have no enforcement arm right now. So even if folks don't leave, we're going to still have some issues with that. So, but anybody who knows Rocky and Daryl know that they're filled with aloha, and hopefully that they can just remind folks that these are the new rules. This is the safety reasons behind these new rules and the emergency proclamation. And once they get the information, I think it's going to be a whirlwind the first few days, maybe the first weekend and the first week. But we've got to come up with a plan, and we'll work at it with the administration and DPW. Heather.
Yeah, you know what? This is crazy. I mean, we're talking about the technical issues and the legal issues, and I get that and I respect that. But I really need to hear from the farmers, because these are the people that are in the valley that are living their lives, and I really want to hear from that. We could talk about parking and enforcement and all of that, but I got tenants that are just that are doing their best to farm and just to be exactly what the Bishop Museum wants them to be. So
Yeah, and
as interested as I am with the parking issues and everything like that, I mean, where are the farmers and how do they feel and about access and all of that?
Yeah, and so Kavi, we have talked about that some prior to you coming on, and the proposed rules for access will continue to allow leases and people that are doing farming down in the valley to continue to access it. And I certainly invite any of the folks that are farmers working down in the valley to speak up now and respond to that. I did want to just call attention to one of the comments in the chat about, when we say residents only, we mean Waipio Valley residents, not just Big Island residents, right? We are restricting this to residents of the valley. When we use that term local traffic, that's what we mean. Yes.
I think Halton's got his hand up, and then Jim Kane.
Okay, we'll go to Halton first. Halton.
Well, first of all, I don't know if I missed the opening pule, but I raised my hand for said a closing pule. The other thing is the lookout parking. Not all of our families get forward drive vehicles, so we carpool down. And if those stars are taken, where's my family gonna park? So that's my concern.
Great, thank you for bringing that to our attention, Halton, and thank you also for offering to do the closing hule. We will take you up on that. Jim, and then
Before we go on, and I just want to throw an idea, and I don't know how we do this, but I know in California that there's certain blocks that have placards and things like that, but that may be something that we look at, so we make sure that, if they're farmers and they actually have a place to parking by placard only, we may have to do something like that. So thank you for bringing that up. Again, that's one of the reasons why we're talking tonight, is to hear the concerns and figure out how we go through this.
yeah, I like the placard idea, and that may actually be something that we can ultimately use with the residential traffic too, so that those can be on the vehicles perhaps at some point. Jim, and then Nolan. Jim?
Yeah, aloha. Ka'iwi Yuan, thank you so much for that question. Because, for all of us who are privileged to be able to take care of the lands in Waipio and work with the land to make it productive and to feed people, you know, we have a certain perspective. Everybody comes to Waipio with different perspective, but our perspective is being privileged to be able to follow in footsteps, carry on, you know, the teachings that were passed to us. And again, to make this land productive and to provide food for our community. And so from our perspective, from my perspective, my family's perspective, to be in the taro patch and to take care. And when, you know, we've been talking about these issues, and I know tonight's meeting is about a geotechnical study, but we've all seen this rise in this different focus being put onto Waipio. And I think a lot of times the INA will just speak up like it has now. It was asked and it has spoken up and said, and like Kaivi said, it's time for a pause, because we've been dragging our feet so much and trying to come up with a better way to receive people. And so this will kind of hopefully move that process along so that in our time, we can make sure that as people do come to the valley, they do so to give something back to the valley in some fashion, rather than what is happening right now and everything just being taken away, rather than giving back to the valley. So, you know, that's my perspective as a taro farmer, that again, so grateful to be able to do what we do and work so hard, but to provide food and this nourishment. And I look forward to, you know, this continued conversation and this process to come up with a better way to take care of Waipio Valley in our time. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Thank you again, Jim, for that. Nolan?
Yeah, aloha, you know, for everybody, especially the county of Hawaii, you know, having to respond, you know, in such an urgent situation. It's not an easy endeavor to, you know, do these kind of things and get everybody's, you know, satisfaction. I definitely concur with the fact that, you know, continued access by, you know, residents and farmers. I mean, that is about the, you know, minimal amount of traffic we can get into Waipio, and still allow to, you know, to minimize the amount of wear on the road, and, you know, hopefully, you know, allow us to, what you call it, the time to do the necessary repairs and get the community input on how best to proceed going forward. Thank you very much, Heather, for facilitating this very important meeting. Aloha.
Thank you, Nolan. Thank you so much for your mana'o there. We have Shanae's phone. You're next.
Aloha. My name is Pat Lockton. I'm just one of the younger generations standing up for Waipio Valley. I actually was one of the persons who actually wanted to stop all the traffic. Kind of stood up just from my kupunas telling me, and I kind of agreed to, like, how, you know, there's concerns about people and about pedestrians and about everything else, but one thing we gotta understand is we gotta think about Waipio Valley. That's just the main thing that we need to do. We got young, thriving taro farmers coming up in this generation. We're just ready to work, and at the same time, we got to take care. But I just like put one pinpoint to something too. Like, I was always taught, like, when you talk about something or you talk about someone, you kind of like address them to the proper name. And I'm not trying to correct anyone tonight. I'm just trying to bring up something. The correct name is Waipio. We should all practice that. Waipio, that's we all used to saying that, but Waipio, that's what we protect. The Vai, which is the water. Not too many places the Vai run through millions of gallons, and us taro farmers get to take that, cherish that. So just a little input from the younger generation. Waipio is my home, so thank you guys for letting me add my input into this, and mahalo.
Thank you so much, Pat, for that. I really appreciate appreciate your contribution. And thank you for all you do. Jesse from Bishop Museum, your hand's up.
Hello, Heather. Yeah, I just wanted to concur with Kaivi. I believe the land needs rest, especially the valley. You know, a long time ago, there was some talks about maybe perhaps building an educational center on the top of the valley. Some place where we could, you know, funnel all the tourists in. They could, you know, if we had a building there with live slides, maybe a few low-ease on the outside, to show the history of Waipio Valley, have movies of all of our past kupunas who we have documented, and that they could see firsthand for themselves without yet impacting the valley. For myself, traveling up and down the road on a daily basis, it is it's very dangerous. You know, a lot of the people think because they're pedestrians, they have the right of the way. And, you know, it's just not the fact when you're coming up the road with a, you know, 1,000 pounds of kalo in the back of your truck, which makes it very dangerous for our local farmers. So I hope that maybe we can all get together and, you know, put some thought into a culture educational center on the top of the valley someplace. You know, several thoughts is maybe the old lookout where you can still go and look over the valley and have a structure there, you know, divert some water, have some low ease, and do something so that way that we can still accommodate the tourist that is coming in, and perhaps even putting up some toll booths. You know, some of that could help, the monies from that could help for fixing the roads, not only going down, but in the valley and for the community of Kukuihaile itself.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for those recommendations, Jesse. And I know you'll be participating in our facilitated process, and we'll be conversing about, you know, some of that there. I think, Mitch, you had a comment.
Yeah, you know, I'm just reading the comments that are coming on the chat, and you know, one of the comments is how will the restrictions affect residents of the valley who have no vehicles but work in town and who walk up and down the hill every day. You know, this is an opportunity. As I listened to, you know, the last two speakers, you know, this is an opportunity for, you know, the farmers and for the residents of Waipio Valley. Thank you, Pat, for teaching me how to say that correctly. To get together and, you know, to actually come up with some solutions as a community. I think this is, you know, with every adversity, there's always an equal greater opportunity. It seems like a great opportunity for people to come together to actually come up with some solutions that hopefully will last after, you know, the road is fixed, so that, you know, we're respecting the valley, and, you know, hopefully it turns into something that, you know, makes it safe for everyone, and, you know, allows us to preserve what we have down there. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is all coming together in a meaningful way, and we're talking about a legacy here that's going to last generations for our children and our grandchildren, and you know, it's important that we're taking the pause and thinking about all of these things at this time. Any other questions out there that folks? I think we've gotten everything. One suggestion with regard to the pedestrians, you know, perhaps if I can have somebody reach out to any residents that do not have a vehicle that would need to walk in and out, if we can get those people's names and contact information so we can start to work with them to figure something out, that would be really helpful. So you can send that to my office. And I'll put my email again in the chat. I see that Mahealani has raised her hand. Go ahead.
Aloha. I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of Carl and I. Thank you guys for putting this together, Heather, Mayor, and everybody else who's here representing their ohana, their division, their department, and, you know, it's nice to see this much people come together for Waipio always. I feel strongly that if we can continue to work together, move together, the process will go very nicely and smoothly. And thank you guys for saying that future meetings will be held on regarding the road. One thing that I've learned in Waipio is people want to know, they want to have a voice. And thank you guys for providing this opportunity.
Thanks, Tish. Good to see, good to hear your voice at least.
Okay, I'll smile for you, Mitch.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Before we go, and there's still a time for a few more questions, so if folks have questions, either put them in the chat, feel free to raise your hand. But before we go, I do want to, we've got a request to run through the timeline again. So maybe we can again just kind of go over the immediate timeline, and then Steve, you can revisit. You can even put that slide back up if you want, of the longer term timeline. So Mayor, would you just refresh us on the immediate timeline, and then I have to re-enable the share screen. Yeah.
Okay. In the immediate future, I believe tomorrow we'll probably start getting signs out. We're going to take the information that we got back from tonight's meeting, and we'll put together our emergency proclamation, highway proclamation. I think for my team, there was one thing that says residents, no visitors. I think it'll be local residents. We'll probably put the word local over there to signify, it's for residents in the valley. I think we probably have our wordings. I didn't hear too many objections to the wording, so we'll probably have that ready tomorrow. The whole design and build, I'll let Steve go over that. Heather, you meet once a month with this group?
We don't have, so this is our working group plus all of their friends.
Okay.
and we didn't have a regular scheduled meeting. We met intermittently. However, as this goes on, we'll work with Steve so that we can have more regular updates as needed. So Steve, I'll pass it to you to talk about the longer term timeline real quickly, and then yeah, we'll continue to make this have these meetings as we need going forward to keep everybody informed. Happy to do that.
Sure, thanks Heather. So Sharice has put the slide back up, but a couple quick comments. Number one, Sharice is an excellent resource for the county DPW, and I'll work with her. We'll see what we can do to maybe put something up on a more regular basis on our website, and then if we're able to dedicate an area of the website for that, just to keep people informed as our consultant gets engaged and starts spending time out there. So we can certainly look at doing that, and that'll help us on the interim times between having these sorts of meetings. The second thing, just someone had the excellent idea about putting a sign in Honoka'a. So that'll be another one, Mayor, that we'll add. We'll take a look at potentially putting a sandwich board out there just to notify people. So that'll give them a bit more of an advance warning there. Getting back next steps, and I mentioned this earlier, I can predict with certainty over the next 4 to 6 months, we will be working on that bullet item number 1, developing a mitigation plan, doing further studies, for further field work, further analyses, coming up with prioritizations as far as the areas that need attention faster than other areas, and just focusing on where we can go in and immediately lower the risk, or essentially the biggest bang for the buck. What can we go in and fix immediately and help us come up with a long-term plan? And we'll develop that again over the next 4 to 6 months. What it looks like after that, I've laid out, the next steps of preparing design plans and specifications and going out to bid and getting contractors engaged. coming up with a better idea on what this is going to cost, tied to doing the studies and the engineering to look at what our options are. And again, most importantly, developing a schedule that will show what the next time frame looks like, whether it's a year, 2 years, what it's going to be, and what it will look like as far as time goes to bring all the mitigation measures that we want to make the repairs to the road, into the slopes. The last bullet item is again permitting. We will have an obligation under state and potentially federal rules and requirements. The federal rules really come in if we seek and we're able to obtain federal funding, but we will be doing the necessary environmental assessment work, the necessary inventory of archaeological and cultural resources, and that will all be done concurrently as we work on that second bullet item. So 4 to 6 months is what we'll need here to get our hands around what our solutions can be and how we best move forward. And after that, having a good plan that we'll be able to communicate just in terms of what the rest of the timing is necessary.
Great, thank you, Steve, for going over that again. And if you don't, okay, great. So what I'll do now, again, we have just a few more minutes here for questions if folks have them. In the interim, I'll just pass it back to Mayor and then Ikaika, and then Councilmember Richards, if you guys have any final closing comments before we leave here tonight.
Well, first, I want to thank everybody for coming on, and this was not easy decisions, and I just want to thank everybody for the aloha that they showed. And oftentimes you go and you have these kinds of meetings, and there's a lot of distrust, and I'm so glad that the way we did this was right in the beginning to get everybody's voices and recommendations. I want to thank Heather, Councilmember Kimball, for working with us to put this together, for the team of people and the community. Before we get off this, I know that I have some of my one of my corporation councils who's taking notes to work on language. I just saw a recommendation, and we'll see if we can do this, which is instead of residents or local residents, Waipio residents and farmers only. Waipio residents and farmers only. So we'll take a look if we can put that in and be that specific. It probably won't be on the signs, because I think the signs may be made already, but it'll probably be on the proclamation. So again, thank you all for being part of this. Great input from the community, and really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Director Rodenhurst, any final comments before we go?
Yeah, just real quick, mahalo to my team for their work in getting this study out and messaging this to the community. I know we still have a lot of work ahead of us, but I'm very appreciative of their efforts, and Sharice, mahalo for providing the presentation and for all you do to help us with our outreach to the community. Again, I want to reiterate that this is not taken lightly. This isn't an easy thing to do, and we are considering the safety, again, of personal and of the community and the Waipio community. So mahalo for attending this and for providing your mana'o moving forward. And we look forward to continuing communicating to you updates as we move forward.
Thank you, Director. Councilmember Richards, any final comments before we go?
Thank you. And again, just mahalo to everybody for getting together. Mayor, thanks so much for putting this together quickly. Heather, again, leading the charge on this, and having the conversation so we can put this plan together cohesively with input from the community. It's not glamorous, it's not fun. No one likes this, but it's important. So again, thanks for everybody for participating. and truly appreciate everybody's efforts. Aloha.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Richards, and for all your help on this. Director Messina, any final comments from you?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for coming on tonight. We understand that the strain that this is going to be on our rangers, that this is going to put on our rangers. And just so I think everything that we can all do together to help them out and let them know that we're supporting them on this tough effort that they've got. We really appreciate that. And if anyone has other ideas on how we need and how we could better our parking situation out there during this closure or this restriction, please just shoot me an email. All my information is out there on the website, and I'll gladly respond to you. All suggestions are good suggestions. So thank you.
Yes, thank you for that, Director Messina. And yeah, everybody out there, the door is open. The conversation remains open, even though as we log off tonight, all ideas are welcome. You've got our emails, you've got our phone numbers. And like I said before, this is a work in progress. So please be patient with us with our fits and starts. We're going to try to do this as best as we can with as much input. With that, I will, if Halton is still on, you made the offer for a closing poulet, and I'd love to take you up on that. So if you're still here, there you are. Yes. Thank you, Halton.
Dear gracious, kindly Heavenly Father, as we come before thee, thank thee for the blessing you've given us. Thank thee for God's country, Waipio. Thank thee for this working group. Thank thee for the mayor. Thank thee for the county. Thank thee for the state. Thank thee for Heather Kimball. Thank you for Waipio Taro Farmers Association. Thank you for Haolo. Thank you for every working group inside there. Thank you for all the Lino descendants. Thank you for the Kupuna. Thank you for Amakua. Thank you for Keakua. As we move forward and we move in on Ponoe, we ask you to put on covering and blessing and protection on this valley that's so deep to us. And it's time to move forward. We humbly ask this prayer in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Mahalo, everybody.
Mahalo, Halton. Thank you, everyone, for your time
Mahalo.
tonight. Have a great evening. Stay safe. And
Hello, everyone.
Mahalo, everybody.
Hello, everybody. Thank you.
Mahalo.
Aloha, ahuiho, mahalo. Thanks, Halton.
Mahalo.
Mahalo, everybody.
Mahalo, Hoten.
Mahalo.
Amene.
Mahalo.
Thank you.
thank you. Have a good night.
God bless.
Heather, did we get a contact number?
Yeah, you can call my office 961-8828.
961-8828. Is there an email address? One of my friends was here and she wanted an email address. Should I just send the one that you sent me?
Yeah, that's fine. And we'll, if it's a question that's directed at one of the directors or the mayor or anything like that, we'll forward it on.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for doing this. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, folks. I am going to just save the chat and stop the recording.
All
Thank
right.
you for your help, Jen and Sharice. I thought that went really well. So.
Okay, good. Good night.
Yeah.
I'll see you tomorrow.
I thought it went really well too.
Thank
See
you.
guys.
Thanks, Sharice.
Record
Yeah.
Steve's part. So, because I forgot to record that Steve's
Or
presentation.
did you stop it already? Just you want me to put the link of the slideshow in
No, I've
the
got the slideshow. I've got the slideshow. So I'll figure out something to make sure that that's included in the final video.
Yep, either one. We can do it.
All right. Thanks.
All right, have a good one. Bye.
Bye, Darty. Have a good night.